Welcome to The Fifth Estate, a conversation between young African scholars from the Foothold School of Government and Professor Mutahi Ngunyi. The position for the President of the Republic of Kenya is falling vacant on the 8th of August 2017. This is therefore to announce the opening for this vacancy. We interviewed the candidates over a period of 4 years, and now we discuss the results of the interview process for 2 candidates. Kalonzo's results are not out yet. We must, however, note that he has displayed great potential.
On August 8th this year, Parliament will be dissolved and Uhuru's position will change from that of substantive president to a temporary president. This concept of temporary president is new to our politics and was introduced by the 2010 Constitution. Now, whether opposition will use it to paralyze government is yet to be seen, more so in the event of a runoff or a prolonged election. And I'm saying this because a temporary presidency has no powers. The president cannot fire his cabinet, and he will be challenged if he uses force in the event of post-election violence or an attack from outside. In sum, this is a dangerous constitutional construct. By the meantime, Uhuru has only 7 more months before he becomes this temporary president. This means that he has time to avoid its consequences. But for now, the question we pose is whether he will become a one-term president or he will be re-elected. Consider our hypothetical questions and the conversation we have on this.
In politics, and according to Frank Underwood in the House of Cards, there is only one rule: hunt or be hunted. And the interview question we posed to both President Kenyatta and Engineer Raila Odinga for the last 4 years was this:
when hunting or being hunted, what criteria do you use to choose your foot soldiers? Loyalty or competence? President Kenyatta said competence.
Engineer Raila said loyalty.
According to The Art of War by Sun Tzu, if you regard your soldiers as your children, they will follow you into the deepest valleys and fight the fiercest of wars for you. But if you regard your soldiers as your competent workers, they will scheme against you at every available opportunity.
Because of choosing loyalty over competence, we give Engineer Raila an interview score of 10 out of 10. Raila will lie, bluff, and even negotiate with the devil for the survival of his foot soldiers. He is loyal to them, and that is why they will fight with vice for his survival too. William Ruto is also like this.
To the contrary, competence is more important to President Kenyatta than loyalty. And this is because he was a student of both Jomo and Arap Moi, but he did his internship under the cold presidency of Mzee Kibaki. This is how he replaced the warmth of loyalty with a coldness of competence.
And because his foot soldiers are nothing but workers with no passion, they have leaked corruption scandals, fueled them to the high heavens, and wounded his presidency.
For taking Kibaki too seriously and not using the charm of Jomo and the cunningness of Moi, the interview score for Uhuru is a 4 out of 10. Raila wins on this question 10 out of 10.
Uhuru's foot soldiers are rented workers. They are not persuaded followers. Persuaded followers are loyal, but rented workers are only competent. So the reason why we give Uhuru a low score in this hypothetical question is because he uses a corporate model to organize political foot soldiers. He is detached from them and has a cold attitude towards them. Yet what foot soldiers in politics need the most is passion and inspiration, not pay. To the contrary, Raila has incompetent foot soldiers with passion and loyalty. If he tells a political lie, his foot soldiers ensure that he travels half the world before we blink. In sum, if Uhuru loses in this election, it will be because he did not invest in loyalty and passion. He did not develop a cadre of people with passionate interest in his presidency. Because loyalty is not important to him, very few people will die defending his presidency, and that might just be his undoing in this election, in our view.
The second question we asked President Kenyatta and Engineer Amolo was this: between politics and development, what is your talent? Unfortunately, none of the candidates answered this particular interview question. Actually, to our surprise, they gave us the content card.
And then we received a useful lead from a Kibera hustler. We had inspired him during our NYS misadventures in the slums. He sent us this story about the Russian dictator Stalin and how he had deceived his followers.
In this story, Stalin went to a Politburo meeting, which is, their cabinet, with a live chicken. He sat on his bossy chair. He said nothing. Then he started to pluck the feathers of the chicken one by one.
The chicken squawked in pain, bleeding from its paws, but Stalin continued happily. He plucked the feathers one by one off the chicken. Not a single feather remained. Happy with himself, Stalin put the chicken down and then threw some chicken feed through it.
And to the surprise of all, this chicken actually forgot its pain and started eating the feed from Stalin's hand. Then, Stalin got up from his seat and then he walked away. But the chicken would not leave him. It actually followed him everywhere he went.
Stalin summarized the lesson to his Politburo saying, "This chicken represents the people. You must disempower them, brutalize them, and then leave them. If you do this and then give them peanuts in their desperate situation, they will follow you blindly."
When we read this story, it was clear to us that Raila's opposition to Uhuru's development agenda is like the plucking of the feathers of the chicken in the story. Plucked feather by plucked feather, he is conditioning the chicken. And that is why, on the question of politics versus development, we give Raila a 0 out of 10 and Uhuru a 10 out of 10.
August 2017
will prove us right.
The third question we asked President Kenyatta and Engineer Raila Odinga in the 4-year interview was this: between change and continuity, what do you stand for?
Curiously, both candidates told us in no uncertain terms that they stood for change. And this is why we must expose a fundamental flaw in our politics of change.
According to Machiavelli, enemies should either be caressed or crushed. If you crush them with minor injuries, they will regroup and revenge.
But if you cripple them with totality, they will be vanquished. This is why an enemy must be injured in such a way that the one who inflicts the injury has nothing to fear. So if you crush an enemy, if it not be total and complete, they will come back to haunt you.
And this is why we must send a jab to Uhuru. He had the opportunity to crush Raila once and for all. He had all the instruments of power, a 2 trillion shilling budget, and an absolute annoyance at the man who wanted him jailed at The Hague.
Yet, despite all this, Raila remained an unnecessary headache for Uhuru. And because of this miscalculation, our interview score is as follows. Uhuru scores 5 out of 10 and Raila scores 8 out of 10.
And the final score on this question is
Raila wins with 8 out of 10.
The second and third hypothetical questions speak to the same thing. The bottom line is whether we should vote for change or vote for continuity. In my view, Raila stands for continuity in opposition. In fact, he stands for continued failure in opposition. If we replaced him with Kalonzo, that would be change. Similarly, if the Luhya nation unites behind Mudavadi and rejects Raila, that will be change. In sum, so long as Raila is the opposition candidate, opposition is nothing but continuity disguised as change. Period. On his part, Uhuru stood for generational change, but this change is now under threat. And this is why our rating of him in this category of questions is low. But August 2017 will reveal Uhuru's fortunes to us. And my bet is that his development record will supersede political rhetoric, but it will do so marginally.
And now, the final results for the most suitable candidate for president on 8th August 2017 based on our 3 questions. Raila has won hands down on 2 of the questions. He could become president. But what do the numbers tell us?
On the first question on loyalty, Raila scored 10 out of 10 and Uhuru 4 out of 10. This is not good.
On the second question on development, Uhuru scored 10 out of 10 while Raila scored a 0 out of 10. Also not good.
On the question on change, Raila scored 8 while Uhuru scored 5. This is now dangerous. It means that the election is too close to call.
And here are the scores from the interview above. Raila 18 out of 30 and Haya Uhuru 19 out of 30.
Raila lost the job by a marginal 1 point because he preferred politics to development.